Welcome to this Style Academy video on intentional sentence fragments. This video is part of our module on becoming a rhetorical ninja, where we highlight some really fantastic techniques that are a little more advanced, a little more subtle, but really powerful. You're going to want to have a good understanding of phrases and clauses and independent clauses and things like that to make the most sense of what we're going to talk about in this video. Now, you may be curious to see this video because you might have been told that fragments were bad. They might have been marked in red on your papers in junior high or something like that. And they can interfere with meaning. There's no doubt about that. But we want to spend our time in this video talking about how we can use sentence fragments in a purposeful, effective way. To do that, let's take a look at these first 3 paragraphs from a Rick Reillys essay that appeared in Sports Illustrated. Pause the video and read this excerpt. Pay careful attention to what you notice about the sentence craft of Reillys. Okay, what did you see? We hope that your eye was drawn to these sentences right here. Broken bones, senseless violence, clashing egos. Not the players, the cheerleaders. Now, what's cool about this? Well, what's cool is that Reillys starts off in this first sentence and we think, hey, he's going to be talking about football, right? There's a football field. Broken bones, senseless violence, clashing egos. Oh yeah, that sounds like football. Then you get this, not the players, the cheerleaders. And all of a sudden, we're like spun 180 degrees, completely different direction. Great way of grabbing our attention and drawing some emphasis to the points he's trying to make. Now, why does this work? Well, these sentences don't look like sentences to you, right? Let's review here just a little bit. A sentence is an independent clause. And if that doesn't sound familiar to you, you might go back and review some of the stuff we've talked about before about phrases and clauses. But essentially, remember that a clause is a subject, some kind of a nounish word, and a verb, and they're connected, right? If the clause is independent, that means that it's complete. It doesn't need any more information to stand on its own. Well, sentences, even though they're punctuated, like sentences like broken bones, senseless violence, clashing egos, they're missing something. What is it? What are they missing? Exactly. They're missing verbs. So they are not independent clauses, and thus they are not typical sentences. Now, let's come back here to Rick Reillys' writing. We've got these sentence fragments. Is there a way that he could have written these just like regular sentences that you and I would expect, independent clauses, right? Well, here's our original. Let's just take this first opening paragraph. Yeah, he could have rewritten it. It could look something like this. We could add a noun and a verb and then make these fragments into objects of our preposition of. That's one way of doing it. Here we've got a nice independent clause exactly like we showed on the previous slide. Here's another way he could have rewritten it. Let's use a colon and turn our sentence fragments into a list. So the question is, why does Reillys choose to use fragments? He's not a bad writer. He's doing something on purpose here. My sense of his use of these fragments is he wants to draw attention. He wants to create bright, vivid images, broken bones, senseless violence, clashing egos. These draw us right into the essay, right into the football action that he wants to set up. And he totally leads us down the garden path. We're picturing helmeted football players out there with their pads and hormones, testosterone, all that going crazy. And then he can flip us, and he's got us for the rest of the essay. I think that's as good an explanation as any for why Reillys would deliberately choose some fragments. Now, like we mentioned at the outset, you've probably been told that fragments are bad. You're not supposed to write in fragments. You get them all marked up on your papers when they are turned back to you, stuff like that. But they can be powerful, as you see in the Rick Reillys example. What do they do, and how do we use them well? That's what we want to talk about next. Now, I think the best way to do this is to look at the prose to see what professional writers are doing. And here's one of my favorites in terms of sentence fragments. This is from Stephen King. This is a memoir, narrative kind of article where he's talking about an accident where he was hit by a van while he was walking on the side of the road. Pause the video and read this excerpt. Look for the fragment. Did you find it? Right here, right? My shoulder. What a great fragment, right? Because you're thinking shoulder of the road and then boom, my shoulder. A lot like Rick Reillys, Stephen King does it really well here. Draws some nice emphasis to that idea, that image. Now, again, we could see him rewrite this as a complete independent clause. But you look at that and it loses a lot of its power, a lot of its effectiveness. All right? Here's an example from fiction. This is from Khaled Hosseini's book, The Kite Runner. Pause the video and read this. See the fragments there? Two of them, right? Right there. Soraya Taheri, my swap meet princess. And what I love about this one is that his sentence, the first sentence there, my heart stuttered at the thought of her. And these fragments act like stutters. They totally reinforce that image. Again, this could be written out in independent clauses with a nice little pronoun and verb. She was Soraya Taheri. But you lose so much in that. These fragments are very effective here. Now, one more. And this, lest you think this is just something for fiction writers or guys who are writing about stuff that isn't all that important. Here's from a retrospective piece 6 months after September 11th, written by Leslie Eaton, shows up in the New York Times. Pause the video, read this sentence, or sentences. You see the fragment? Right there. It's a powerful fragment. The list, the repetition, the cadence of this sentence is powerful. If we rewrite it, this is not the best rewriting maybe, but here's one option. We start off with this filler, almost kind of lame word there. It loses a lot of its power. So fragments are powerful. They can be used in light-hearted writing. They can capture a sort of informal, conversational kind of tone. They can also draw emphasis to important, meaningful kinds of things. That's their power. All right. Well, let's take a look at some exercises. We've got some exercises for you where you can look at fragments and tell for yourself or try to tell for yourself whether these are good fragments, whether they have that kind of power, that effect that the examples we've just spent the last 5 or 6 minutes looking at have. So what we'll do is I'll show you a set of sentences. You pause the video and think or talk with somebody, if you're looking at this together, about whether this fragment works. You ready? Here we go. Here's the first one. What do you think? Hopefully you got a sense that this one does not work as well as the other ones that we've looked at. In the case of this set of sentences, we have this participial phrase here at the beginning that really is so closely connected to the sentence that comes after it that setting it off on its own doesn't work very well. Let's try another one. Take a look at this pair of sentences. What do you think about that fragment? This one comes at the end here. Does that work? I'm hoping that you're not comfortable with this fragment, because that last part there, that neither of them had enjoyed, that's a clause, right? And it modifies appetizer, and the modification is so important. They really need to be part of the same sentence. Doesn't really work to set them off that way. Now, on the site, there's other exercises just like this. Some that work better than the ones I showed you. I kind of loaded these up and 2 that just did not work. It's important for you as a writer to be able to differentiate between fragments that are going to work, that are really effective, and those that don't. These exercises, looking at these examples that are on the site, that'll help you pick out those that don't really work well. But the other thing that you can do, just pay attention to fragments as you read. You're going to find them everywhere. News magazines, newspapers, blog posts on the web, books, both fiction and nonfiction. Good writers use sentence fragments purposefully when they want to draw attention, when they really want to highlight something important, surprise us, change our direction. You've seen some examples of that. I hope you'll find ways to use them in your own writing because they can be great.